Calling the meeting to order for the Grosse Ile's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. Ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As far as roll call goes, four of us are here. I did get confirmation both from Wes and from John that they're not able to make it tonight. So, Wes is recovering from flu, which is unfortunately going around. And then John said he had a conflict and would not be able to make it. So we should have an agenda before everyone. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the agenda as read.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have public comment, but there's no one here in the office. The boardroom over here. So if someone comes up later on, we'd be happy to do another public comment later on. So I'm officially opening and closing public comment. Next on the agenda, we have approval of minutes. So we had our last meeting on December 3rd of 2024. And we also had a meeting on September 19th. And looking at the December 3rd minutes, I believe I did not see us approve the September minutes at that meeting. So if everyone's had a chance to read them, if we just want to be able to vote on both of those and get these officially on the log, that would be great. So is there any questions about the meeting minutes from December or September?
I have September's here if you need to see them.
Anyone need to see them?
No, I don't, thank you.
Okay. So if there's not any questions, to ask someone to make a motion.
I make a motion to accept both December 3rd and September 19th.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, we have action items. We have 2 action items before us tonight. First is nominations and vote for the commission chair. The commission chair runs this meeting, sets the agenda, and is generally more of the spokesperson for our commission over here. We also do have secretary as well, but that's not something that is specifically required from the township board's perspective. So I apologize, I do not have that on the agenda over here, but we can also add that in. So with that, is there any nominations for the commission chair? Anyone interested?
I'll nominate you, Brian.
And I will second that.
Well, thank you. Is there any other nominations? Anyone else looking to be nominated? All right. Hearing none, we close the nominations and I have the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote as well. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Try to do good for another year here. Next action item, next action item would be, secretary. I know that Christine has been doing that duty and we're very thankful for that. I'll begin with, are you comfortable continuing on with that, in that role?
I am.
Okay, great. So I will nominate Christine to be secretary for BPAC.
I second
Okay, is there any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll close the nominations. And all in favor of voting for Christine to be commission chair of BPAC for another year, say aye.
Aye.
3-0. Next item is meeting dates for 2025 and 2026. We need to be able to list when our meetings will be happening. This is not a definitive list, and it is subject to change, but it's just to make sure that people can understand in advance when we do plan to potentially have meetings. If we don't have quorum, obviously we'll be canceling that meeting, and then we can also switch it as well, but, we try to we will abide by the Open Meetings Act and make sure that there's enough public notice about any changes to the agenda, those meeting dates. So I did put together a Word document that includes those. Generally, I was proposing that we stick with the same time, and again, like generally the third Thursday of the month at 7:30 p.m. And if that was the case, we would have March 20th, April 17th, May 15th. For June, I know I'm going to be out of town on the third Thursday, so I was proposing June 26th, if that works for everybody. July 17th, August 14th, September 18th, October 16th, November 20th, December 18th, January 15th of 2026, and February 19th of 2026.
I think I brought this up before, and if the rest of the commission feels that 7:30 is cool, I'm cool with going with it. But it is a pretty late meeting. Like, typically I'm trying to go to work, come home, switch over to meeting mode, come to a meeting, and then go home for the final time. And it's a little, I guess, personally disruptive to go home for like 3 hours and then come to a meeting. I don't know if anybody else kind of feels. I know you guys might work later than me too, though, right? So
Me personally, a lot of times I need to, do other items, and so like it gives me more time to be able to take care of things for the kids, or to get home, eat dinner with them, and then come up here afterwards. So I prefer the 7:30, because it just gives me an extra half hour to prepare. But I'm flexible. If everyone else would like it to be earlier, we can try and do that.
I'm very flexible. If we have to flex every month, I don't care.
Christine, I know you gotta go
Either.
earlier.
Yeah.
Like you gotta wake up and, teach kids, so.
I have an early teacher bedtime, yeah.
yeah, that's kind of. I get up early for work too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds like, if 7:30 is the preference of the chair, I'll default to you then, Brian.
Well, I wanna make sure that everyone feels comfortable with that.
I can make 7:30 work. It just, it eats up most of the evening instead of just eating up the earlier part of the day, but it's once a month.
But I do recognize you have to do multiple meetings too, so.
Yeah, but I think, I think everybody here is probably on at least one or two commissions, so.
Jameson, how many meetings for the township do you attend in a month?
Regular meetings, 3, but there's been a lot more than that lately.
Yeah. Thanks
So,
for doing them.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I guess we'll keep 7:30 for now, and then.
Yeah, that's fine.
Maybe next year it might be a little bit different. I know I'll have 2 children driving at that time, and so that might take a load off on me, and so it might be a little easier for me.
Okay, fair enough. Then I'll move to accept the dates and times as read.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Additional discussion?
A little bit of additional discussion on this on my part would simply be that during our summer meeting dates, those are long days, and the ability to maybe fluctuate some of those, June, July, August especially, and there's going to be vacations planned, and I try to schedule everything in those 3 months in the first week of the month, and then it leaves me 3 weeks of uninterrupted scheduling. And of course, these aren't in the first of the month, and they never have been, the first week of the month. But so I want the ability to say, can we flex this schedule on short notice? It might be 2 months ahead of time, not at 2 days, but 2 months, and say, We've scheduled something for that month, and I either can attend or we have to change the schedule.
Yeah.
I think that flexibility has to be included.
So the Open Meetings Act stipulates that you must have a public meeting noticed for 24 hours prior to the meeting. I know the township has like a newspaper publishing cycle, but ultimately meetings can be modified up to 24 hours prior. So I think that flexibility is there. If it's just a matter of whether the chair wants to, you know.
Understand?
And typically, we try to have the agenda and everything set up a week ahead of time. So I don't think that will be going 24 hour, within that window of that 24 hours would be a concern.
I would never give that short of a notice, but it would probably be well over a month in advance, but just the ability to be able to do that and keep that in mind, that, sometimes you want to plan a vacation, that's the only time you can
Yeah.
schedule it, so.
I mean, we've changed the meetings many times in the past. I'm still totally open to that.
Okay.
The reason why we have these dates right now is because, it's required to have these posted. And so checking the box and saying,
Sure.
this is what we're shooting for, but, it can change. And
With a little asterisk.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, there's meetings that we cancel completely, and then there's meetings that, we switch the week or the time. So, as long as we can get quorum and, whatever works for most people, I'm happy to switch to, as long as we abide by the Open Meetings Act and township procedures.
Well, thank you.
No problem. All right, if there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
No, sounds like no opposes, so 4-0. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda, we have discussion items. The first item is the budget, and so I know Ross was able to give us a 2-page document that shows our balances as well as expenditures over the past couple of years. And I apologize for folks at home that I do not have the ability to show this up on the screen, but I will just say that in summary, we have $467,000 to be like as a balance, and that is through January 31st of this year. I do not know if we will be getting any additional funding. I know that I thought our millage was up this year. I'll need to verify that. If maybe it's at the end of the year as opposed to the beginning. I thought we wouldn't have anything, starting on January 1st. But looking at the line item for estimated revenues, in 2021 we had roughly $94,000. In 2021-22 we had $95,000. In 2022-23 we had $179,000 come in, and then $197,000 the next year, and then it's at $413,000 for 2024 or 2025 as the original budget, and then it has another $84,000 for 2024-2025 activity through January 31st. So going down the line item, that's where I get to the $467,071. So that's at least what we have, but I don't know how long that needs to last us. So anything that we propose for this year as far as maintenance, any safety enhancements, we're going to be discussing a wayfinding plan, all of that will come from this budget. And, probably need to be able to talk to John Keim and, others over in DPS that, we're very fortunate that they do the grunt work for us and be able to, clear the paths of the snow and, do some trimming and all the lawn mowing. And so we need to make sure that if they need any items like repairs to the lawnmowers or a new lawnmower or a new brush for the for snow removal and things, that we look into that as well.
I'm looking. I had a document about our millage, and I'm seeing if I can. Yeah, I don't think I have it handy. I believe it expires not this year, but in 2026, if
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
mistaken. I had a conversation with Derek about it, and what it boiled down to was he'd like to come in and talk to us and kind of like project when it expires, what we're looking at in the future as far as other millages go, in order to be able to maximize, minimize the cost to the taxpayer, change, I should say, to taxpayer, right? We don't want to create a greater tax bill. What we would like to do is to replace some other millage or maintain our millage, or even maybe have a slightly larger millage, but also have some other millage levied at a lower level or something. So Derek wanted to come in and discuss that with us. So
Okay.
and we could maybe schedule that as a presentation for next meeting.
would
Just
be
let
good.
us know if that's what we want to do, and I'll let Derek know.
I'm all in favor of that.
Okay.
I'd also add, if there's things that people think that we want to do this year or in the, future years, let's talk about that too. So that way we can start planning for large items. So I know, for example, we'll need to continue to do either maintenance or some major repairs on parts of the thoroughfare bridge, or I should say, the bridge over the thoroughfare canal along Meridian. We probably need to do some staining, and might need to do a few other things for the 2 other boardwalks. We might need to be able to look into how the new Gibraltar Bay connector path is going, and if there's anything that we need to do with that as far as additional like aggregate or limestone or something to put down there, or anything else related to maintenance. And then of course we have different safety improvements, the wayfinding signage, and stuff associated with Bellevue. So come with your ideas, and maybe we can talk to Derek a little bit in advance to give him some ideas of like what we're thinking about, and that way he's got some
It probably wouldn't be a bad idea to talk to Ross too, since he's supposed to be the one providing us the day-to-day support.
yeah.
So Derek's just, I think Derek's the more appropriate go-to for the millages and whatnot. So
Yeah, we can start with Ross, and then, looking at it from just lessen the tax burden, talk with Derek about that. Sounds good. All right. Is there any other questions about the budget? Any comments or anything we need to discuss?
is Ross working? So it's budget season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I saw a couple emails go around. I don't know what BPAC's budget process is typically like. I think probably because we're not a department, we maybe don't necessarily get the screws put to us to have a protracted 5-year budget. I'm not sure. Have you talked to Teresa at all about that, or?
I have not.
Okay.
In the past, when Ann was the finance director, basically she would kind of look at past years and then just project forward.
Okay.
And so it was just a stab in the dark, and like, hey, this could be it, but we could go much higher or much lower depending on what we really wanted to do.
Well, it's a
And that's one of the
little-
things I wanted to do, is like be a little more proactive and like, looking multi-years out. So if there's any staff that would like to help us with that, that would be great.
Yeah, and I think, we're a little different because essentially we have a maintenance budget, right? It's not like we have big capital improvements we're making or outlays. So yeah, I'll chat with Ross about that a little bit and see what historically our spending has been, and maybe we can
Yeah.
tie into that a little bit.
We might need to go back a few years, because we've been a little tight on the budget. Again, knowing that the millage is going to expire and wanting to make sure that we have funding available for, any emergency things that come along.
Right. Okay.
Next item is a wayfinding system RFP. I don't know if folks had a chance to read this, but Ross put together a good document. And so like Ross had been talking to myself, I believe talking with Jameson about this too. And so, as you do know, for a long time we've been talking about wayfinding signage along our shared use path system. Going back a number of years, Al, I know that you proposed like putting like the mile points or like, some sort of like confidence markers along the way, so that way you can say, well, I'm at, mile 1.25 or something like that, and I've got a flat tire, I need help, or whatever it is.
Sure. We have an opportunity to use the Onyx Trail System. It's an app that hunters use and, hikers, and they will map your recognized trail, and you can use that app on our trails. It'll tell you, stores that are close, where there's gas. You might find the police department or a restroom, and it's all included under the filters or.
Okay.
Yeah, I use Onyx actually, and it's the same parent company as Gaia, so you get kind of both of those. The Gaia folks are a little bit more off-trail oriented, but you could have maybe some of the open space, like Ferry Trail, Meridian Open Space Trail, and stuff like that on there too. So, which would be cool.
Yeah. Well, they could theoretically do the whole state trail, any recognized trail. You just have to go in there and put your filters in on what you want. Like the ATV trails, you can do a side-by-side trail or a individual trail or hiking trail or mixed-use trail, and it filters down to that. And depending on how the trails are set up here, you would just set your app to what you need, and it'll tell you how far you are from Kroger's if you want to go to the grocery store or one of the boat clubs. Or and,
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
I'd
definitely
like to
keep that in
explore that
mind.
more.
But like there's the side where people are a little more technologically forward thinking. They might have the apps, and then there's a lot of other people that either don't have the a smartphone like that, or they don't want to download the apps, or they don't want to be looking at that like while they're out.
I'm one of
so,
those
like,
guys, Brad.
Gotcha. So yeah, like there's the need for things that are physical, tangible, like along the routes as well. Additionally, we've talked about just general signage, about standardization and minimization, and then supplementation. And so looking at that both from just a user perspective, but also kind of looking at it from like the Michigan Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or MUTCD. And so like that's another thing that we've been talking about for a while. And then Ross has been talking with Open Space, and then there's the Groseal Nature and Land Conservancy. And so he thought, like, hey, there's a lot of overlap over here. And so he put this RFP together for us to be able to react to, and see if we had comments and things. So this is what we're talking about over here. And I apologize again for folks at home that can't see this. We'll try to make sure that we have a copy of this available, to download in the future, so that way you can move along. But the first page, just as a placeholder, it's a title page, and it's supposed to have a due date for like when proposals would be due to the township. There's a table of contents that talks about an invitation to participate, background and scope, and then the submission requirements. And so there, I haven't even gone through the entire thing yet. I plan to just kind of read this, and if people don't have, can look over my shoulder or whatever, I'm going to just read aloud so that way people can hear, and then we can comment as we're going along. So for the first section with the invitation to participate, the purpose section talks about how the Township of Groseal is seeking proposals from qualified urban design firms to lead the design of a trail, pathway, and natural areas wayfinding system. This project is a township-wide initiative led by the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission in partnership with Greenways and Open Space Committee and the Groseal Nature and Land Conservancy. So one thing I thought about right there is there, should we be limiting it to these groups, or could we potentially go a little bit farther out? So I just think about Macomb Street, and trying to create a sense of place over there, and like the wayfinding signage you might have there. Some people have considered those sidewalks part of the system. It's actually identified as part of the Iron Belt Trail, so it's like I could see like where we'd want to potentially include the DDA, And then just to be inclusive, like I know John Rathel has been working on things over here at Airport Commerce Park. And so just see like, hey, are they open to that? Is there something that they would like to see? I don't know like if either of these groups would be as active as the others, but I just thought it was a possibility and something I'd like to talk with Ross about if others are in agreement. So moving along, so I added another spot over here to say, additionally, Grosse Ile's paths, trails, and natural areas are part of a larger regional, state, and federal initiatives, including the Downriver Link Greenways, the Iron Bell Trail, the Great Lakes Way, and the Detroit International Wildlife Refuge. Some of these initiatives have their own branding already, some of which might already be existing on Grosse Ile. Special consideration should be taken to how to complement or comply with their branding while also allowing for the flexibility of Grosse Ile to have its own unique character.
Sorry, I tried to log in so we could look at it, but
Yeah, not a problem. So yeah, I was setting the context is there's already is some wayfinding over here of some sort. For example, like right at Macomb and Meridian, we've got one of the markers that is courtesy of the Downriver Link Greenways and includes some of that stuff. So I'm not saying like we have to go with exactly what they've done, but it would be nice that if it complements or meshes well rather than having stuff that conflicts.
Yeah, no. I mean, adding a sign with room to add more direction on it would be one way to be able to expand in the future and add more labeling and mappage. And we have to keep that in mind that, we might only fill half of a post up and leave room for additional future endeavors. So maybe that's what we need to do is put the posting up, and they can use their own signage on that post. I know it might look a little hodgepodge, but everybody has their own unique signage, and we're never going to match everybody.
Yeah. Well, we'll say that the Downriver Link Greenways did a pretty good job of creating something that meets for like multiple communities across southern Wayne County, as well as it's like inclusive of like the Iron Bell Trail, and I believe it includes Great Lakes Way. So like there is some consolidation there already, and then I know that, for example, in Oakland County with Clinton River Trail System, they did a branding effort in order to do similar things where there's multiple communities that have their own unique character, different names for the trails, but they also like provides like more of an overarching pattern that works well. And so that's just kind of what I'm going with over here is just, hey, this is the goal. This is one of the reasons why we're doing this proposal is that we would like to find something that works for BPAC, something that works for open space, and the Nature and Land Conservancy, and then again Macomb Street or the airport if they're interested. And so that again it's more unified and it's something specifically for Grosse Ile rather than just 4 or 5 different types of wayfinding signage.
Yeah, I think this is, since this is a request for proposal, right, it can be as vague, it can be vague.
Yeah.
Right? And what we should receive is proposals that say, these are the things we can do. And when we decide where we're going to go, that's when we can get into like specifics of what we want it to look like and who's paying for what and what, what are we getting in open spaces versus what we're getting in, on the trails. I think what we would want to pay attention to is like the scope of the work, which does seem to, there's a couple things in here that are kind of cutting edge, like including QR codes and whatnot. I don't know if you saw that. which was kind of
I didn't
interesting.
get to that part yet, but yeah.
But I think that's where the focus, I think, was what we'd want to be, because the rest of this stuff is generally just, you know,
Yeah.
RFP fluff.
You know, what I want to try to avoid, though, is I noticed when we put the horse mill link on, they made sign farms, and the sign farms overwhelm anybody who's trying to differentiate where to go or what to do. It overwhelms them. And I really don't want to see 6 different signs.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like one central post with maybe different signs on it, but not overwhelming.
I think that
the-
would be where we would get into it in like the design phase, right?
Yeah. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I like that term, sign farms.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it in a little while, but like,
Remember up on Horse Mill how bad they were?
yeah, so like, that's a great point. And the other thing that I didn't see in here, and I think that, again, like if this is a BPAC-led initiative with like our funding, is I want to get about just about the sign farms, about the sign clutter, and standardization. So again, looking at the traffic control and like other specific signage that's more than wayfinding. So trying to comply with the MUTCD or like best practices for traffic control signage and like other things, both for the pathway users and for the road users. So that way there's no violation of expectations. So after I had those notes there, Ross had gone on to say, once completed, the plan will provide a footprint for the township to implement a comprehensive wayfinding system that is both intuitive and visually appealing, which again goes back to what you're saying there, Al, and will reflect the island's character and modern needs. And then it goes into more RFP, mumbo jumbo language about the proposal. Point of contact is Ross. So there'll be some presentations to the township. There's a timeline, which doesn't have dates yet, but it talks about the release of the RFP and like when there'll be a request for information, the deadline of the RFP, other meetings, so that way they can gather more information, and then again, just much more procedural stuff. I noticed that it does say DDA in here, so I'm thinking that might be left over from a previous RFP, but I'm going to ask Ross about that. There's a background area over here, and it says that Groseal is within Wayne County, the most populous county within the state of Michigan, with more than 1.75 million residents. Wayne County in southeast Michigan includes the city of Detroit and numerous suburban communities in the west to the south. Groseal Township is considered part of the metro area. However, as an island within the Detroit River, Groseal Township is physically separated from the mainland portion of Wayne County. Vehicular access comes from the bridges, so it mentions about those, and neighboring communities of Gibraltar, Riverview, Trenton, Woodhaven, and Wyandotte. Access to the remainder of the metro area is key transportation routes include I-75 and Fort Street. So one thing I thought that was lost here is Groseal is completely within the Detroit International Wildlife Refuge. I feel like that's something unique, and again, like it kind of goes into both like the federal system for like wildlife refuges and something international. So setting the context there that while we're an island, we're connected to a lot of stuff.
I didn't realize the whole island was part of the wildlife refuge.
Yeah, it's like the shoreline along the Detroit River. It goes south, and like it even goes over to the Canada. So like the whole area is part of the International Wildlife Refuge with all the different islands and things out there. But the units, like Gibraltar Bay and the Humbug, like those are like specifically owned by the federal government, and so it's like another layer of conservancy. So then they go into they lead with the natural areas and trails. So this is like our open space trails. Groseal residents are thankful to live in an area surrounded by an abundance of Michigan's natural heritage treasures. These natural areas include marshes, woodlands, meadows, and trails, and have been protected to remain in their natural state free from development. As a result, the small town, semi-rural natural ambience of our community is maintained. And then it talks about the total number of acres of open space, the total number of acres for the Grosse Ile Nature and Land Conservancy, acres of marshland, and then nearly 365 acres of DNR, natural resource islands, and 80 acres owned specifically by the Detroit International Wildlife Refuge. Then it says, that with these natural areas, there's approximately 4 miles of trails consisted of wood chips, desire paths, and unofficial trails. I thought it would be good to add in, while these trails are mainly for walking and dog walking, some bicyclists and other users do use these trails too. And some of these trails are loops, others are linear, allowing them to be used both for transportation and recreation, and work well with Grosse Ile's bike paths. And then that leads into the next section about the bike paths. So it says, there are approximately 10 miles of 8-foot shared use paths throughout the township, which connect to the north and south ends of the island. That's it for our whole system over here. So I thought it needs to have a little bit more to explain what we do. So I said, bike paths are the vernacular term for Grosse Ile's bicycle and pedestrian network, which includes 10 plus miles of shared use paths. I don't have these numbers over here, but we can say the miles of sidewalk and wide paved shoulders. Additional paths and other infrastructure are planned for the future. Grosse Ile's partners with the Downriver Link Greenways to build and brand and program a system of walking and biking routes that connect communities together and link to major county and regional parks. Part of the Downriver Link Greenways and Grosse Ile bike paths are on the Iron Bell Trail, which connects the Downriver Link Greenways with Detroit, Ann Arbor, and the rest of the state. I also thought it might be a missed opportunity if we don't talk about water trails. So that is something that, again, is part of the Great Lakes Way. Being an island, with access to other little islands and our various canal system, there's a lot of things out there. And if you have not seen it yet, I'm sorry, I keep plugging my own organization here, but if you go to SEMCOG's website, there's something called Trail Explorer. And basically it's Google Street View for land trails as well as water trails. So, you can go to our website and you can see, at least for sure on Grosse Ile, the water trails. So our thoroughfare canal, and then the surrounding part of our main island over here is digitized, and you can check it out. So I felt I haven't seen a lot of efforts on this recently, but I know there has been a big push over time, for branding and programming water trails, not only across the nation, but also within the state in Southeast Michigan. So depending on how we feel about this, that it might be an opportunity to at least do a scan and say, hey, what do you think would be good as far as any sort of signage or anything, for Grosse Ile water trails.
And those water trails are also ADA compliant. I know of at least 3 launches that are ADA, funded and specialized just for them.
Yeah. Do we know, is there any specific, township department or committee, working on water trails? I assume Recreation did, the kayak launch.
I think if we told Recreation there was such thing as water trails, they would probably laugh at us. I think there is a kayak launch on both sides of the island. I don't know. I think that's about the extent of any other department's interest in that.
Okay.
So.
What about the Friends of the Detroit River?
Yeah, what kind of signage would we? I mean, I could see putting in some kayak launch signage, or something like that. I don't know what. I mean, we can't put signs in the water.
No, I mean, it might be more on the digital side.
Okay.
it's been a number of years since I went to a conference on that, and I was kind of just like learning at the time being. So it's like I would have to go back and look, but it just, as I was reading through this document, it came up, and I just thought, okay, well, I'm at least going to put a little spot in here to talk about it with this commission and just
Yeah, I mean,
see
it's worth
others.
including in the RFP, I think, and we see what they come up with.
Yeah.
You know.
And I feel like you could potentially kind of have like a menu of options. So it's like, oh, well, hey, for the core document of what you think you really want here, it's going to be, X amount. If you want to add on water trails or add on the DDA or like other things, it'll cost X plus 100 or, something like that. So that way, that, okay, we don't have to take everything that they recommend over there. Especially if it's very costly to add those things on. But at least like we're giving it the time of day to see like, hey, is this something that is the juice worth the squeeze over here?
Yeah, I say include it in the RFP and see what they propose. You
Okay.
know. But I think because, I mean, like, I've used the Trail Explorer on SEMCOG. It's a very nice tool, right? So from a township perspective, what I would do, and maybe this is just me being a little cheap, is I would just link that.
Yeah.
Just drop I don't even know what you call it, embed it, right, in our website and be like, here you go. You want trails? Here's trails. So.
Yeah. I think it's good just to say, hey, what are options out there? And find stuff that's, if we like any of it, what's cheap and, effective.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, the Onyx system would offer anything they offer. They have the trails, they have even property identification, so if you're on private property, you can get off of it, or, I mean, it's quite a depth.
So I'm reading this section about challenges where they talk about the parks and open space and about our master plan that's not officially adopted yet, but moving forward. It talks about a survey. The primary objective of the new wayfinding system is to simplify the navigation process through the township so that residents and visitors are informed by integrating clear and consistent signage across the island. This initiative aims to make our natural areas, businesses, and attractions more visible and accessible. I think we should add in something about safety.
Yeah, I mean, increase safety of crossings or,
Yeah. Scope of work. So they talk about a needs assessment, identify key destinations, decision points, navigational challenges involving stakeholders such as ourselves. Design, strategy development, a cohesive wayfinding and signage strategy that caters to vehicular, pedestrian, and bicyclist navigation. The strategy will integrate both physical and digital navigation aids to enhance digital integration, so QR codes, like Jameson was saying, linked to the website, enabling real-time access to information about local attractions. Digital components, a natural area directory, design and develop a user-friendly online natural area directory, integrate with physical signage, website integration, fabrication and materials, basically making sure the materials are good for the weather conditions, installation, implementation planning, so like where these signs are going to go, gateway features is one of the things they mention, a maintenance plan. So the maintenance plan specifically for the signage. I think it should, costs associated with it too. Collaboration, working closely with BPAC and Greenways and Open Space, Nature Land Conservancy. So, okay, so now again, the mumbo jumbo of the RFP. So it's saying, you know, the requirements that should include, you know, firm overview, project approach, previous work, project team, budget estimate, and references. Evaluation, relevant experience at 25 points, reliability, skill, and qualifications at 30 points, references 25 points, and cost 20 points. I think that seems pretty standard. It adds up to 100. Submission requirements. That's it. So I guess, is there any other comments that you have on the RFP at this time? Do we think this is a good idea?
Yeah, I do. I think because ultimately what did it cost to build our trail system? You know, what was it? It was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or something. It cost 30 million. And it cost what, $10 million for the initial outlay, and
I would be totally guessing. Like,
well, I can tell you it cost $2.2 million to go from Meridian to West River, right? That's the cost of the Bellevue connector. So BPAC is never going to have the money to sustain the trail system in perpetuity, right? So the township itself is either going to have to assume some of the costs eventually, or the people are going to have to vote for like a trail renovation millage or something at some point. And of course there's grants and things like that, right? So I think that holding on to BPAC's money, thinking we're going to repave a bunch of trails is a pipe dream. So we might as well spend it on things like this, right? Like, let's make these trails value added, so when it does come time for them to need a large renovation or repair, that the people see that like it's worth spending their money on, right? So I actually think this kind of thing would improve our chances in the future of maintaining the system at the level people would like to see it at.
So just to let you know, like the cost of Bellevue, I believe that was estimates done by CE Rains, and it had like a bunch of different options, including shared use paths, included, you know, significant amount of like either retaining wall or boardwalks and things. I think that the firm that did the official like design, I think it's PEA, like they were able to do a lot of value engineering to like bring down the costs. So I don't know the exact amount. It might be something good to, you know, check out, like what this actually was, so that way we can say for sure, hey, this is how much it costs, this is how much, you know, we saved the township. I just don't want to get out there and say, oh, you know, it costs, you know, $2.2 million for a sidewalk and there's a big gap in the middle. I feel like that'd be kind of like unfair and could be used as weaponized.
That's fair. I guess what I'm saying is we're not digging up and fixing the whole trail system with $490,000.
Correct.
You know, that's, I guess, the thrust of my point. So let's spend it on things like this that make it value added, so when it does come time to spend some real money on this,
Yeah.
people want to do it, you know.
I think the more that we have this to be inclusive of not just walking and biking, but, you know, it could include water trails, and, you know, it's not just the path system, but, you know, it's also open space. It's including in, you know, the International Wildlife Refuge, and potentially, like, again, wrapping in about like the Great Lakes Way and stuff, that we might be eligible for, you know, some of these small micro grants.
Right.
So like I know, like, you know, my organization, we do planning assistance dollars, and roughly it's like $50,000 like per project, and I could think that, you know, the community pays 20%. So it's like we could see if like, hey, does this fit the bill for that? And then, you know, it might cost even less. So just a thought out there, and I'm glad it sounds like, you know, there is general consensus about this, and so, you know, we can give these comments to Ross and, you know, see about putting it together. And the only other thing I just want to make sure is from Ross is like, hey, there's nothing in this language that says that, you know, commits us to this at all. You know, this is kind of just finding out what the costs are. So yeah, again, like if it's a $50,000 project, or, less. I hope it's not $100,000 or, $200,000 or something like that. Because
Yeah, it's just a proposal. So companies would just come in and say, this is what we can do, and this is how much it'll cost you,
Yeah.
and then we figure out if we want to do it, and if we do, which ones we want to go with. And then you start working with them on what are the specifics, right? Same process for the bridge or any of the other RFPs that, the wastewater treatment plant, the roads. So,
Okay, yep. So we'll get more information from Ross, and again, do we feel like we need an action? Should we make a formal motion on this?
I think it's listed as a discussion item, so if you wanted to make a motion, we would have to modify the agenda again, which isn't a big deal. But
I just want to make sure that, hey, if I
think
do I have authority to just, go talk to Ross about this? Like, we're not taking
Yeah, I
any formal
think-
action on it.
No, I think you just talk to Ross about it when you have a final product, then we'll vote to, go out to RFP, and then it'll actually go to the board and they'll send it out for RFP.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good. So moving along, we already talked about the millage, so I don't think we need to talk any more about it tonight. Master plan update. Thank you everyone for giving us comments, and I did relay those over to Smith Group, and I'll find out if they need anything else from us, and talk to Ross as well. But as far as I understand, our role is complete within that. Yesterday at the Planning Commission, we talked a lot about the action items, which many of them were focused specifically on housing and land use. And so the Planning Commission voted on what things to keep and what things to delete as far as recommending it to the Township Board. And so in the future, that will be going before the Township Board for a vote. And I think that there is some possibilities that there might be additional revisions to the master plan document before any formal adoption, based on some of the things we heard last night. I don't have any other updates on the master plan. Do you have anything, Jameson?
No, I watched the meeting last night. I know it's been a long process for the Planning Commission, so I just want to say, thank you for the hard work and for making sure that BPAC had a seat at the table, right? So I'm grateful for that.
Happy to do so. All right. Next item is Bellevue Road. That's inclusive of West River as well. And so this is the project we talked about that for the Groseal section, it starts along the sidewalk along the West River connector from Groseal Parkway. It ties into that sidewalk up there, and will have a crosswalk across that connector to go along the east side of West River, wrap around Water's Edge, and then be on the north side of Bellevue. Then there will be a gap a little bit, along the Groseal Country Club property, and then it'll pick back up near the driveway of their formal parking lot, and then have a sidewalk over there and a crosswalk that connects into the Meridian bike path system. So I did talk with Eric Antelak from Downriver Link Greenways earlier this week. He said that it's been a little challenging, working with MDOT on a lot of the different requirements that you need with federal funds. So there's things like NEPA and historic preservation, and just making sure that all of the design meets those requirements. They seem to be pretty good in regards to the MDOT side. They had final plans submitted. There was some revisions based on that, and I believe they're either ready to go as far as to submit that again, or they will be shortly. The other item is that they need to work with Wayne County because in simple terms, Wayne County needs to be the sponsor of the project in order for to use those federal funds. So Eric has been meeting with various people within Wayne County, and will be going before like their planning group and then eventually the Board of Commissioners. And once that's signed off, then things will start to fast track more. And so they're looking at probably late spring or early summer as far as the construction of those parts of the sidewalk.
Okay, good.
That leads up to the gap that will be within there, and I feel like we need to start moving forward on that and have conversations with the country club and with rec and everything. Make sure everybody's on board and see if we can get to a final solution on filling that gap, or at least like a pilot project.
Yeah,
to
I
test it out.
talked to RAC about some of the potential ideas. One of them being closing the road and creating a linear park. They actually really liked the idea. They can see some uses for it, given that it's kind of in their backyard. So I think they would be an ally in that effort. So I guess if I had to rate like how we fill this gap, the best case scenario would be, close the road and create a linear park, right? But that has other considerations, like, what does it look like in 10 years when grass is growing through the cracks? Things like that. What do we do with it? I think probably the minimum we would have to accept would be a dedicated painted bike lane. Maybe even with, I don't know what they're called, the flip down. If you hit them in the car, they just fall over and pop back up. The rubber.
Flexible delineator post.
Flexible delineator posts, FDPs. So I think there's some options. Let's see if we can't talk to Jay and figure out what their optimum choice is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if we get the triumvirate all focused on it, then we have a little bit more leverage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, speaking with Jay, I know that Jay's on the planning commission, and so like I just wanted to give him an update yesterday and say, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. It's like we just want to make sure that we had good information to share with you before coming forward, so we're not wasting your time.
Right.
And he was like appreciative of that. And then he did say he did hear about potentially like doing festivals or something like on the space, because I know at one of our past meetings we're shooting for the moon, just throwing out ideas. So just like a brainstorming session, not saying, oh, this is the preferred thing that we want to do. And so I told him that did come up at a meeting. And again, like we're not pursuing that specifically, we're just throwing out ideas. And
yeah, it
he
would
just
be
said, like,
weird
the
to put
golf
a
ball.
festival in the middle of the golf course, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that would be viable. I guess I'm thinking about as far as uses go. I think if you were going to use it, you'd be using the end closer to rack, right, where it's mostly wood line. I think the portion by hole 8 of the country club would just be pretty much you can ride your bike through here.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, though, there's no point in closing 200 feet of road, right? Like if we're going to close a portion of road, we might as well close a significant portion of it, right? Which
Yeah.
I think is a win for Grosse Ile Golf and Country Club. And then the far end of it, down by rec, I mean, that becomes, whatever it becomes.
Yeah.
So
So it's just, again, like what type of things you can do to activate the space. Again, I don't know, like I don't want to commit to anything. I just want to, see like, hey, what can we do so that way people are interested and we get more buy-in from people.
right.
So as we're talking over here, I was thinking, you know what about this wayfinding signage? Like, what if we expanded it to like include, hey, what can we do with this space over here? Like the placemaking aspect for a potential road closure. Just an idea, because like, hey, if we,
I like the idea. I kind of wonder if you would have different types of firms looking at that, right? Like I feel like the guys that are trying to come put signs in are
Yeah.
probably not the same as like the Miller Canfield type designers.
you'd be surprised. A lot of times with consultants, they partner together.
Oh yeah.
So like there might be, and you just say like, hey, Miller Canfield, and you're like, that's like, they're working on that design for something. But if there's something related to traffic, well, they might go with a firm that has, civil engineers that are like PTOEs and stuff that can, proficient with, all of those specific laws. And so, one of them might be the sub, and the other one might be like the main. And so it is a possibility.
I guess, could we, I think there's probably a way we could add it as I don't know what the exact government terminology would be, but you could maybe put it as a caveat in the RFP that's like, hey, if in addition, if you could do this, we might be interested in that service as well.
Mm-hmm. And the way I was looking at that again, it's like, hey, it might open it up for like other grant funding.
Yeah, that would be a good one for those micro planning grants you were talking about, actually. So, okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah, no commitments, but just ideas. So yeah, again, like we're talking about the space that's still to the east of the country club pool. Like that parking lot is still staying. There's no like sidewalk over there. The sidewalk basically crosses the main driveway off of Bellevue and then just stops. So like from there all the way to.
I thought it went further than that.
It was supposed to, but like the design is not reflected in
It
that
only
now.
goes to the west driveway. By the snack bar.
So why did they never confirmed that with us?
I don't know.
think.
We need to find that out.
Because I believe, I don't remember the exact spot, but I know I stood there with Jay, and I
Yeah.
talked to Eric. I guess I could look back through the emails.
Uh-huh.
Um,
I have the plans before, like right over here. I looked at them and I asked Eric specifically. It's like, hey, I'm not seeing this part over here, and like, but like there's like references to it. So like, am I missing something, or like what's the deal? And so he talked to the engineer, and like they confirmed that they didn't design that part, or they took it out or something. So that's going to be on us as far as filling that gap too. It shouldn't be that bad, but again, like it would be something to talk about with the country club to make sure, like, hey, can we get that? We want to be able to still have you have your vehicular access to the pool. How can we get a sidewalk through that spot so that way we can get to
so they terminated the trail at their driveway?
On the other side of the driveway, yeah.
So really, we only have a trail from Meridian to the other side of their driveway, and then to the back side of the 8th hole?
I believe so. I mean, we can look at the plans like offline if you want to, but that's what I'm seeing is like the rest of the country club is not included.
Okay. I guess I'll take a look at it. Maybe I can talk to Eric.
All right, the last item I had was about grants. I apologize, I don't have anything specifically to share with you, but I can tell you that there is, a variety of different grants. A lot of the DNR ones, like they have an application deadline of April 1st, I believe. So if we did want to go for any of those grants for whatever reason, we'd have to start cracking. And then there's some other, funding sources that, I'll share later, just for us to keep in mind and start planning for.
Can we recruit someone to this commission who likes to write grants? Like, does anybody know anybody who's just like, I love writing grants or something like that? Because we're in the really, I mean, I don't have time to sit around writing grants. I assume most people on this board don't.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of them slip through our fingers because we're, lacking in administrative people power.
I don't know of anyone that would volunteer for that. I mean, maybe some others do, or maybe someone that's watching our meeting over here knows of someone. So I'd definitely be open to it, but I feel like that's usually a paid position. And so again, if it was, it'd be like, okay, can the township, look into doing that? So that way it's like for a variety of
Ross
different.
to do it, right? But we're a secondary priority for him at no fault of his own, right? So I think, I don't know. I guess maybe that's something we should stew on. Maybe we could find some kind of temporary employee, during certain times of the year you bring on for a week or something like that.
We could ask the Downriver Link Greenways. I mean, I know that they've said that they want to be able to help communities, get grants and help find funding, especially on the maintenance side. So we could ask Eric about that if he has capacity or if he knows anyone that has capacity, and say some of the things that we wanted to apply for.
Right. Okay.
So that runs us through all of our discussion items over here. So is there anything that any commissioners want to report on outside of what was on the agenda?
I guess I have a question. I was crossing the Free Bridge the other morning. Who is in charge of clearing the sidewalk that goes over the Free Bridge? I noticed someone on their bicycle. They were having a really difficult time trying to get across the
I would
bridge.
assume that's Wayne
It's a
County.
brave
Yeah.
bicycle rider.
I know. It was very icy, and yeah, he got off the bike and he ended up walking it, which I believe is what you're supposed to do anyway, but he had a very difficult time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that anybody clears it, right? Maybe the employee that works there to swing the bridge is supposed to. I'm not sure. That might be.
Ask Wayne County.
Once we become part of this linked greenways, though, it may be
Yeah.
something we need to do. Someone needs to do.
Yeah, I mean, we would definitely have to look into that and,
Yeah.
check in as far as legal department, Hopefully there'd be some sort of MOU set up for who's doing what.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so you're responsible for cleaning the sidewalk of your property, and that's Wayne County property. So it's
Yeah.
you tell them to clear the sidewalk.
I mean,
right?
our bike paths are, within Wayne County right of way, and, we maintain those.
Yeah.
But I assume that at least somewhere along the way there was an MOU signed or something that says.
Well, I mean, your sidewalk in front of your house is in Wayne County's right away too, and you still have to clear it.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Okay. All right. I guess we need to look into that too.
Make sure the notes reflect that.
Is that what you were going to argue about?
That's what I was going to argue.
Oh yeah.
Jameson, do you have anything to report on from the larger township?
I mean, the big thing is, that's taking a lot of. Is this our first meeting this year? I think it is. Yeah. So the big thing that's consuming a lot of the township's administrative focus, the two big things, and the board's focus is the bridge and the master plan, right? And now we're heading into budget season. You may have seen that the Lions Park proposal that DDA put together, which required a $200,000 loan from our dedicated loan fund, was rejected by the board in a 5-2 vote. So I think at this time, the temperature of the board is that most members of the board, considering 5 of them are new, want to get through a budget process before they start committing large amounts of funds. I think the BPAC project, our RFP here is a little bit different, and I don't think this will come back before the new budget year anyway. I think it's different because we're a dedicated, not quite an enterprise fund, but a separated fenced fund, right? There's nothing else you can take our money and do anything with, So that's been the big effort at the board level. There's been a lot of public meetings about it. I think you guys are tracking that in April, the Free Bridge is likely going to be closed for 8 weeks. And of course that diverts all traffic over to the toll bridge, which at that time will hopefully be the Grosse Ile Township toll bridge. The intent is to continue to charge tolls. The reason for that is because if we do not charge tolls, right? And I understand once we buy this bridge, the residents own the bridge, and they are paying a millage for the purchase and upgrade of the bridge. But if we don't charge tolls, we would have to charge a tax in perpetuity, right? Because this bridge has to last as long as, well, I guess forever, right? Theoretically. So I guess it's a use tax, really, is what the toll is. So I understand, I live right next to the Free Bridge, so I hardly ever take the toll bridge. But it's good that it's there, so I'm willing to pay my $3 or whatever, $2.50 or $3 to make sure that it's still there when I need it. So I think, Brian, you talked about master planning earlier, and I think I'm working on a project with Rec to come up with a playground. There's a couple of different sites. We're looking at right now the site we would like to see the most is across from Lions Park, because that kind of creates like a one park divided by a public road, right? And potentially with parking and things like that. So we're working on that, and that involves the purchase of land. So I'm not going to talk too much about it because I don't want to let any cats out of bags or anything like that. But just know that's in the works. And I think it's all, at least I have made a concerted effort, and I know this commission has, over the past 4 years, to try to move the ball forward on access to parks, access to trails, access to open space, pedestrian areas. And I think this is just one more of those little things that, gets us closer to the pin. So, and that's it. That's all that's going on in the wide world of Grosse Ile politics.
That's enough.
Yeah, it really is.
As far as chair's report, I'll say that May 7th, 2025 is Bike and Roll to School Day. So, typically we partner with the schools and parent associations regarding that event. It's one of 2 events that happens each year. This one's at the end of the year, and it's more bike centric, but it's inclusive of all modes. And then there's also one in October that's more walk centric, and so it's a walk and roll to school day. So this one is more biking focused. It's one that I think that we've focused more in from Grosse Ile's perspective. Better weather in general. It's kind of like the unofficial kickoff of for summer, as far as kids are riding their bikes to school, and they'll ride them more later on. So again, if we have any volunteers that want to be able to see how BPAC can assist with Bike and Roll to School Day, that would be great. So maybe we can talk about that at a future meeting. A couple other things going on regionally. So I know that with SEMCOG, they're updating the full regional bicycle and pedestrian network. So all of our bike paths and other items can be digitized. It'll be in a GIS format, which will be again helpful if we do have a wayfinding program in the future and want digital aspects. It can also be used for planning purposes. They also have a road safety audit program, and a lot of times they focus in on vulnerable road users, so people who walk or bike or taking transit. And they are looking for additional communities with projects. So I don't know if we have any specifically in mind, or if Jameson, if you talk to representatives from public safety and the police commission, but if there's any sort of road segments or intersections and things that I think might benefit from an independent audit focused specifically on safety for multiple modes, that could be something that it can provide grant funding for. Okay. Again, that there is a match associated with it, but again, it's 80-20. Mm-hmm. I know, talking with Ross in the past, that he was looking at a Macomb and Park Lane about how wide that is, and being able to calm that down a bit. Mm-hmm. So that way it's safer for people to cross the street, and maybe even give them a right of way, or some sort of indication, so that way you don't know that the car is just not going to wait for you at all and just blow past you. Other items that might be of interest, and I sent both of these items to the commission over here, as well as others at the township. SEMCOG is having a general assembly in March 20th, and this is open to the public, so anyone can go. It's at Michigan Central Station. In Corktown, Detroit. There'll be tours of Michigan Central Station. There'll be a business meeting, talks about various SEMCOG efforts, and then there'll be a networking reception. So, if you're interested, go to the SEMCOG website and, register for that. Additionally, they're having a SEMCOG 101, which is very beneficial for people that aren't familiar with the agency, which is both a metropolitan planning organization, so specifically looking at transportation issues and environmental issues and economic development, but also a council of governments, like a membership organization. And Groseal is a paying member of SEMCOG, and so that's why I like to be able to mention these events, because I'd like to make sure township officials or like anyone from the township residents, like they're getting their money's worth out of the member dues. So there's lots of opportunities to learn about grants, to learn about technical assistance, a variety of data that we have available, parsed out for specific communities, as well as communication opportunities, and even things like at the the state and federal level relating to new legislation.
That's the April 14th one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
So with that, that's the end of my chair's report over here. If there's nothing else, can we get a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All right, call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Walk, bike, drive safe. Meeting ends at 9:03.